how is your approach? Because I'd love to dig into sort of the nuts and bolts of how you approach the creative process. How has your writing changed, if at all, from when you were on deadline writing pieces for the New York Times, and let's just assume they're the pieces on the shorter side, and book writing? Because one thing that's always struck me, and it's given me a lot of insecurity, is that I do feel like I get writer's block and it can last for extended periods of time. But when I talk to my friends who are trained journalists, they have just seemingly eradicated the belief, the concept of writer's block from their minds. They're like, look, I don't have a choice. I have to have this in by 5 o'clock. I don't have the luxury of thinking about writer's block. I mean, how has your process changed? And what are your recommendations to people who are trying to really write something substantive for the first time?
So I will say something which is writer's block does not actually exist. And I'll tell you how I know. I was speaking to a group and I thought, hey, I'm going to do an exercise. And I had them write something really challenging. I said, your first sentence, I can give you guys the first sentence. I want you to write the most interesting first sentence you can possibly write. So interesting, someone has to read the second sentence. And then I took them through maybe 5 sentences, each one challenging. This sentence, I want you to write something that makes somebody feel something emotionally. Now I want you to tie the sentence back. And I made it really challenging, and I gave them just a few minutes for each sentence. Everybody completed the exercise. Everybody in the room, even people who aren't writers, people who are professional writers, people who are screenwriters, people who think that they're not writers. And it proved to me that there's no such thing as writer's block. Writer's block is almost like the equivalent of impotence. It's the performance pressure you put on yourself that keeps you from doing something you naturally should be able to do.
Interesting. Okay.
So writer's block, the reason you don't get writer's block as a writer because you have a deadline and it has to be in and you have no choice. But if you sit there and you think this piece has to be the ultimate article or the ultimate book ever been written, and my entire self-esteem is wrapped up in this, and this is me, and I'm, and the bigger of a story you make up about what you are doing, the bigger the block will get because it's all, it has nothing to do with the talent of writing, the skill of writing. It's all completely a performance anxiety.
So I read a quote recently, which I thought was very applicable to me anyway, because I have a tendency to put like the weight of the world on my shoulders when I'm trying to write things, which doesn't help. And right. the quote was, "The essence of creativity is fucking around." and I think there's some truth to that. But when you're writing, to avoid some of that pressure, I know we've talked about this before, but for people who haven't heard this because it was a long time ago, you do a number of different drafts or revisions, and they're for different people. Could you just expand on that?
Yeah, I would say that if I can give one tip that will help anyone get their things done is when you start writing, just write to the end. Just write to the end. The only time when I start writing something, I try to get a nice first couple pages or a nice couple first paragraphs, because it's just a nice little balance, a nice little sort of weight to drop the rest of my book or project on. So you can spend some time on that, but when you're done, just write to the end. Just get it all done, get the story out there, because the truth is, it's not really until you get the end of what you're writing that you really sometimes even know what it is or where it's going or what it's going to become. So you just write to get to the end, and your first draft is this is for you. No one's ever going to see it, so you don't have to worry about it. You're not going to turn it in. You're not going to show it to friends to evaluate. This is only for you. And the fun part about that first draft is when you're done, somewhere in that mess of words you just wrote the entire book. The entire book is in there, and you don't have to deal with anything else. You're done with your notes because you put them all in there. All your thoughts are in there. Somewhere in that mess is your book, and now you just have to carve it and shape it into the actual book. So my first draft is always for me, and that's the easy part. By the way, the easy part is the first draft. The tough part is the second draft, because the second draft is for the reader. Is this what you wanted me to talk about?
Yeah, this is exactly what I wanted you to mention.
So the second draft is for the reader. So here's the thing: your life may be really fascinating to you, but most of it is really boring to somebody else, or your ideas may be really fascinating to you, and maybe you've come by them, worked really hard to get to those ideas, or you've suffered and agonized, and this thing is going to change everything, but some of it is just boring to other people. It's interesting to you, but it's boring to other people, and you have to have a filter on that says, this is what's interesting, and this is what's boring, this is what's repetitive, this is what's new. So the second draft is where the real pain comes in. The book I'm writing, I just cut out a 125-page chunk that took me months of research and months of writing, and it had to go, and it's a better book for it.